All right, guys. So this pillar that we're talking about is stress management. There's a lot of factors when it comes to the different types of stressors in your life, whether that's work stress, family stress, financial stress, even spiritual stress. I'm gonna take a practical approach to this and talk about different things that can be done, and different things that I would encourage you to potentially explore, because this is a very multifaceted topic that requires a little bit more internal work on your personal development, but it can have a massive effect on how we perceive pain, how we tolerate it. Again, I'm going to have another plug for physical activity here. I know me personally, when I have a really challenging day mentally, emotionally, like simply from experience, I know that I need to get a hard workout in that day because it's going to help me sleep better. It's going to help me relax. It's going to help me not feel so anxious. And that's one of the things that really needs to happen in order for me to move beyond the stress of that day, and to kind of get my brain in a place that I can move past it and actually, get to sleep in a reasonable time, which is again going to help me manage my stress by, getting proper sleep. That's one of the components. So physical activity and sleep, obviously we want to be managing those. I've talked about sleep a little bit. We'll talk about exercise right after this, in the very next segment, very next pillar. So a couple different mindfulness techniques that can be utilized here, really just kind of centering yourself on the moment, improving your mindset. So if you're a spiritual person, as I myself am, like praying and meditation, can be tools that you use to improve your spiritual connection, your spiritual relationship. That is something that I highly recommend. How you do that is up to you, but I think it's something that is often neglected, and it's something that I think a lot of people can benefit from. Journaling is another piece. I mentioned it in our previous segment a little bit. And that's, for me, like, there's a lot of ways you can go about that. And some people will go about that as like writing out a prayer or writing out, just their thoughts. Just getting it down on paper helps. Excuse me. Some people will do it in a way that they, are responding to a prompt. What do I feel like I accomplished this day? What am I grateful for this morning? What am I looking forward to in the next week, month, year, that sort of thing. Practicing gratitude, practicing, celebrating the small things. Even laying out their to-do list can be an act of journaling. Like, hey, these are the things I'd like to do. I might even take that list then and prioritize it and say, all right, let me write down the things and kind of get it out of my head for a second, so that I'm not stressing about forgetting anything. And then also, okay, then prioritizing what absolutely needs to get done versus what is, maybe can be pushed off, to the next day, that sort of thing. So that can help you get your thoughts in order. There are lots of different ways, and you can even Google or use ChatGPT to look up, journaling prompts that are helpful for your specific situation. One way to improve that as well, mindfulness wise, breath work can be helpful. There's lots of different ways that you can do that. I know for me, always a big fan of box breathing, and usually that's done with 4 counts. Sometimes, it varies from person to person, but with 4 count box breathing, all it is, you're going to inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Super simple, something super simple you can walk yourself through. And I like to just practice on seeing, if I can feel my body and try and relax, everything that's not being used to do that breathing, everything aside from my chest, my lungs, maybe even my neck a little bit. And that's one thing that you can use. Might even put your hands on your chest or your belly or your rib cage to feel, have that physical input to feel what your breath is doing. Can kind of center you on the moment and keep you from drifting. If you can focus on that, it'll keep you from drifting to anxiety and fear about what's to come, or, dwelling on the past. So that's the idea of being mindful, being centered in the moment. Visualization is another thing that I use for stress management is, hey, can I visualize what is, what I would like to see happen in a certain situation? For me, that might be, I want to see a client have success, and what does that conversation look like after the fact? What does it look like to get them to that point where they are going to be successful? All those things. So that's one tool, and really that is, I'm closing my eyes, I'm thinking of that conversation, I'm walking it out and talking it out for myself, and I'm visualizing what that success looks like on the other end as well, and maybe even walking through that. um another thing, and here's where we're going to dive into with stress management. The stressors in our life include family, include relationships, include work, our careers. That can bring up some pretty challenging conversations. When it comes to addressing those, it might be that you need to reach out and find somebody who can help you work through those things, who does that professionally, whether that's counseling, whether that's a therapist. Those It's something I'm a big proponent of, is people utilizing those services. I've done it twice myself. My family members have. It's something I recommend to clients from time to time, depending on their situation. It's not something that should hold this stigma. Hopefully, as the years go on, it'll continue to be more popularized and lose some of that stigma. And it's being made more and more accessible, which is really cool. That's something that I highly want to recommend to people. Not sure if stress management for you, if you just know, like, you hold on to a lot of stress, you cannot seem to get rid of it, and you absolutely need some help managing it and working through it. That's one of the things that I think can be really valuable, is seeing a licensed professional for that particular purpose. Moving into something that can be a little bit more, dramatic potentially, is genuine lifestyle changes. What I like to remind people here is, oftentimes we're in a lot more control of our schedule than we realize. Like, we have these things on our calendar that are a bit more, they're not necessary, even though we've included them on our schedule as absolutely crucial, whereas there's actually a little bit more flexibility to them than we realize. Changing those things can be within our control, even to the degree of changing jobs or careers. Those are a bit more dramatic steps. But for some people, staying in the same career for too long can cause stress to the point of, health issues, pain, heart attacks, things that are not long term, or not tenable long term for that person. And would they be manageable with some of these other stress management techniques? Potentially. It's hard to tell, for that person in particular, in their current situation, their environment, and all the different stressors that they have. So that's where, a lot of times, like I said, I highly recommend counseling, working with a therapist if you need to. But really looking at, if you're somebody who, like, stress management stands out to you as the number one thing you need to do and need to improve on to reduce your aches and pains, then it may be that there's some larger lifestyle changes that need to happen in order to address that. And so I would encourage you, if that stands out to you, to pursue some of those and to walk it down the line, see what does it look like for me to make a larger change, because I'm not happy with my ability to manage stress with the role I'm in, with the position I'm in, with my scenario, my situation in life. Can you walk it down the line and find a potential alternative? That might be the case. I would highly recommend, if you do decide to pursue a thought process like that, is to do it with a professional. So again, stress management can be a key. I've given you some practical takeaways and some just suggestions for how to pursue that with a pro. Yeah, like I said, some of those lifestyle changes are not going to be quite as dramatic as I mentioned. It might just be that I want to change how I do my meals. So we're going to have meals earlier in the day in order to be able to go for a walk after our meal as a family together. Or if you're single, or if you live by yourself, maybe it's just by yourself, you and a pet, something like that. So that's an example of a smaller lifestyle change that can have a dramatic effect on stress management. Hopefully that gave you guys some ideas and that you are getting into the mindset of managing your stress a little bit better. And we will round things out with the next pillar, which is going to be exercise. And we'll talk a lot about it there. It's one of my favorites.